The room shimmered with elegance, the kind of refined atmosphere where every movement seemed carefully measured and every word carried weight. Crystal chandeliers cast golden reflections across polished floors, and the low hum of conversation drifted between dignitaries, artists, and distinguished guests. It was an evening built on tradition, prestige, and quiet formality. No one expected that a single playful remark would transform the mood entirely. No one imagined that a quiet young royal, often overlooked, would become the center of a moment so captivating it would silence the entire hall. At the heart of the gathering stood a grand piano, gleaming beneath the chandelier light. It was more than decoration. It was a symbol of refinement, a silent promise that music might eventually fill the space. Nearby, a world-renowned pianist, admired for both extraordinary skill and a charming sense of humor, mingled with guests. His presence alone added a sense of anticipation to the evening. Conversations flowed easily, laughter remained polite, and the atmosphere carried a gentle sophistication. Among the guests sat Lady Louise, composed and understated. She did not command attention, nor did she seek it. Her posture was calm, her demeanor thoughtful, her presence quiet enough to blend seamlessly into the background. Many in the room barely noticed her. To them, she appeared simply as another young royal enjoying the evening, reserved and content to observe. The pianist's eyes eventually drifted toward her. There was a playful glint in his expression, the kind that suggested mischief rather than malice. With a smile, he gestured toward the piano and lightly suggested she take a seat and play. The remark was delivered casually, almost as a joke meant to ease the formality of the gathering. A few guests chuckled softly. Others exchanged amused glances. It seemed like a harmless moment, a passing comment that would fade into the rhythm of the evening. Yet something shifted. The laughter softened. Conversation slowed. A subtle curiosity spread through the room. The suggestion, though playful, placed Lady Louise in an unexpected spotlight. The question lingered silently among the guests. Would she accept? Or would she politely decline and return to the comfort of anonymity? For a brief moment, she remained still. The weight of attention rested gently on her shoulders. Refusing would be easy, even expected. Accepting, however, meant stepping into a space filled with accomplished musicians, dignitaries, and discerning listeners. It meant risk. It meant vulnerability. Then, quietly, she rose. Her movement was graceful and deliberate, not dramatic, yet enough to draw every eye in the room. The murmur of conversation faded as she began walking toward the piano. Each step seemed to slow time itself. The playful remark had transformed into something else entirely. Curiosity turned into anticipation. The atmosphere thickened with expectation. She reached the piano and took her seat. For a moment, her hands hovered above the keys. The silence became almost tangible. Guests leaned forward slightly, unsure of what they were about to witness. Many expected only a few tentative notes, perhaps a polite gesture to acknowledge the joke. Then she began to play. The first notes were gentle, yet precise. They floated into the air with unexpected confidence. The melody unfolded smoothly, each phrase flowing into the next with quiet elegance. The room, once filled with conversation, now seemed suspended in stillness. No one spoke. No one moved. The music commanded attention without force. Her fingers moved with control and grace. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty. The sound filled the whole with warmth and depth, revealing not only technical ability but emotional understanding. Each note carried intention. Each transition was seamless. It became clear almost instantly that this was no casual performance. Surprise spread across faces in the audience. Those who had smiled moments earlier now watched in disbelief. The playful challenge had awakened something extraordinary. What had begun as a joke was turning into a revelation. The melody grew richer. Her playing displayed nuance, sensitivity, and a quiet confidence that captivated every listener. The piano seemed to respond to her touch as if it were an extension of herself. The performance felt intimate, as though she were telling a story without words. Even the pianist who had made the remark leaned in slightly, his expression shifting from amusement to genuine admiration. The atmosphere had changed completely. The hall was no longer a place of polite conversation. It had become a space for shared wonder. As the music continued, it revealed more than talent. It revealed discipline, years of practice, patience, dedication hidden behind a calm exterior. Every phrase suggested a depth that few had expected. The quiet royal who often remained in the background was now commanding the room effortlessly. The final passage approached slowly, gracefully. The melody softened, then resolved with a gentle flourish. Her hands lifted from the keys. The last note lingered in the air, echoing softly before fading into silence. For a brief moment, no one reacted. The stillness was profound. Then applause began. Soft at first, almost hesitant, before growing into a warm and enthusiastic ovation. Guests rose from their seats. Smiles spread across faces. The surprise had turned into admiration. The playful challenge had become a triumph. Lady Louise stood quietly, her expression composed. She did not seek recognition. She simply acknowledged the applause with gentle grace. The moment spoke for itself. What made the performance unforgettable was not just skill, but transformation. A quiet presence had stepped forward, revealing confidence and depth that few had imagined. The audience realized they had witnessed more than music. They had seen the power of understated determination. The pianist, still smiling, offered a nod of respect. The gesture carried meaning. The joke had turned into admiration. The unexpected had become extraordinary. The evening gradually returned to conversation, but something had changed. The energy in the room felt different. Guests spoke in hushed tones about what they had just witnessed. The moment lingered, unforgettable. Behind the elegance of the whole, behind the applause and admiration, lay a simple truth. Talent does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly, hidden beneath calm composure, revealed only when the moment arrives. Lady Louise had not sought the spotlight, yet when it found her, she stepped forward with grace. Her performance became a reminder that confidence does not always appear bold. Sometimes it is gentle, steady, and deeply powerful. The chandeliers continued to glow. Conversations resumed, but the echo of that melody remained in memory. The joke that sparked laughter had transformed into a moment of inspiration. The quiet royal had spoken through music, leaving an impression that would not fade. And as the evening drew to a close, one thought lingered in the minds of those present. Sometimes the most remarkable moments begin with the simplest challenge. Sometimes the quietest voice carries the greatest impact. And sometimes, when expectation meets hidden passion, the result is nothing short of unforgettable. The hall eventually emptied, but the story remained. A single invitation, a quiet walk to the piano, a performance that turned surprise into admiration, a reminder that brilliance often waits patiently, revealed only when the world least expects it. The final note had faded, yet its meaning endured. Calm confidence, quiet strength, and the extraordinary power of stepping forward when the moment calls. The room was already perfect in the way only the most exclusive gatherings can be perfect. Everything looked intentional. Every reflection of light across crystal glass, every soft movement of silk gowns, every quiet exchange between powerful figures carried the sense that this was not just an evening, but a carefully preserved moment in time. And yet, beneath that polished surface, something unpredictable was waiting. It began so subtly that no one recognized it at first. A passing smile, a casual glance, a light remark delivered with humor rather than seriousness. A world-famous pianist, known for commanding concert halls that held thousands in breathless silence, stood among dignitaries and royalty as though he was simply another guest enjoying the evening. He was relaxed, confident, almost playful in the way only true masters become when they no longer feel the need to prove anything. The grand piano stood nearby, untouched for the moment, its glossy surface reflecting the golden glow of chandeliers above. It was not yet part of the evening. It was decoration, presence, potential. And then, without warning, that potential was spoken into motion. The pianist turned his attention toward a quiet figure seated among the guests. Lady Louise, calm, composed, unassuming in a way that made her almost invisible in a room filled with prominence. She was not ignored out of disrespect, but overlooked simply because she did not demand attention, and that, in a place like this, made her stand apart more than anything else. With a faint smile, the pianist made a remark. Light, playful, almost joking. He suggested, in front of the gathering, that she should try playing the piano. A few guests laughed politely. Not loudly, not mockingly, just enough to acknowledge the humor in the suggestion, because to them it was a moment of entertainment, nothing more. But something shifted in the atmosphere immediately after, not visibly, not loudly, but in the subtle way rooms change when attention begins to concentrate on a single point. Eyes turned. Conversation slowed. Even those who were not paying attention at first began to feel the shift, the quiet gravitational pull of expectation forming around one question. Would she accept? Lady Louise did not respond immediately. She did not laugh. She did not decline. She simply remained still, her expression unreadable in the way that calm people often appear unreadable to those who underestimate stillness. In that silence, assumptions began to form. Some assumed she would politely refuse. Others assumed she would smile and retreat from the moment, preserving comfort over exposure, because that is what most people expected from someone they believed to be reserved. But expectations, especially in rooms like this, are fragile things. The pianist's expression remained light, but the room had already changed. The joke had become a focal point, not because it was cruel, but because it had created possibility. And possibility is far more powerful than certainty. Lady Louise slowly rose. It was not dramatic. There was no hesitation visible, no performance in the movement itself, just a quiet decision made without announcement. But the effect of that decision was immediate. The room followed her. Every step she took toward the piano seemed to stretch time slightly. Conversation stopped completely now. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Even those who had not been paying attention earlier now found themselves watching. She was no longer just a guest. She was the center of a moment that no one had planned. As she approached the piano, the polished surface seemed to glow brighter under the chandelier light. It was waiting, silent, uncertain. She sat today. For a brief moment, nothing happened. And in that moment of stillness, the room collectively held its breath. Because silence in a room full of powerful people is never empty. It is full of judgment, anticipation, curiosity, and invisible pressure. Her hands hovered above the keys, and then she played. The first note did not announce itself loudly. It did not demand attention. Instead, it arrived gently, like something unfolding rather than something being performed. And yet it changed everything instantly, because within seconds it became clear that what was happening was not a polite gesture or a nervous attempt. It was music with direction, music with control, music with understanding. The second and third notes followed, and suddenly the piano was no longer an object in the room. It had become the source of it. The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to disbelief. Her playing was precise, but not mechanical, controlled, but not rigid. There was a depth to it that suggested not just technical ability, but emotional comprehension. Each phrase carried intention. Each pause carried weight. Each transition felt deliberate, as if she was shaping something larger than sound. Guests who had expected hesitation now found themselves facing something entirely different. Surprise first, then admiration, then silence so complete it felt unnatural in such a large gathering. The pianist who had made the initial remark now watched differently. The playful energy in his expression had faded, replaced by something more measured, recognition, respect, and something closer to genuine astonishment. Because this was not a reaction, this was expression. The melody expanded, filling the whole with a presence that felt almost cinematic. It was not loud, yet it reached every corner of the room without effort. People stopped analyzing and started feeling. That is the moment in any performance where skill stops being measured and starts being experienced. Her fingers moved with certainty, not speed for the sake of display, but precision for the sake of expression. There was no visible struggle, no search for notes, no uncertainty in rhythm. Everything felt already known, as if the music had existed in her long before the room ever heard it. The performance revealed something unexpected about presence itself. She was not performing for attention. She was not performing for approval. She was simply playing. And that difference changed everything, because audiences can always sense intention. And this intention was not to impress. It was to communicate. The room, once filled with subtle noise and social rhythm, had now become completely absorbed. Even those standing at the far edges of the hall were drawn in. No one wanted to speak. No one wanted to break the moment. Time, in a strange way, seemed to slow. Not because anything physically changed, but because attention had become absolute, and absolute attention changes perception. As the piece developed, it gained emotional complexity. soft passages that felt reflective, stronger sections that carried quiet determination, a balance that suggested not performance, but understanding of structure and feeling together. It was no longer about whether she could play. That question had already been answered. Now the question had become something else entirely. How long had she been able to do this without anyone knowing? The answer, of course, was hidden in the nature of quiet discipline, because mastery does not always announce itself early. Sometimes it grows in private, far away from recognition, until the moment it is finally revealed without warning. And this was that moment. The final section of the piece arrived gently, not with intensity, but with resolution, as if the music itself understood it had reached completion. Her hand slowed. The final note was placed with care rather than force. And then silence returned. But it was not the same silence as before. Before, silence was expectation. Now, silence was realization. No one moved immediately, because moments like this do not end instantly in the minds of those who witness them. Then, slowly, applause began. At first, hesitant, not because it was undeserved, but because the audience needed time to transition from disbelief to acknowledgement. Then it grew, stronger, warmer, more certain, until the entire hall was filled with it. A standing ovation followed not out of obligation, but recognition, the kind of response that happens when expectation is completely surpassed. Lady Louise stood quietly, acknowledging it without drawing attention to herself. There was no visible desire for validation.